So I do need that. My name is Jonathan. I'm Baal Teshuva. I'm a little overwhelmed right now. I don't get nervous. I've spoken in front of thousands of people, shared my story, tell them I love them, they owe me money, and I'll say what they always say in shul right before we start on Fridays. If your phone is on, it must be important. So Mendel came to me and said, you know, you're funny and you're entertaining. Would you mind speaking? And I was a little overwhelmed, so I took a lot of notes. I got about 37 pages here. And I've been sick for a few days. I just got about 2 days better. I don't think it was Corona. I think it was SARS, but you know, I didn't feel well. Okay. So we're going to give this a shot. Good evening. Some of you I know, some of you I don't. My name is Jonathon Marcelino. My Hebrew name is Svi Hirsch. It means little deer. That's my family. I'm more like Big Bull in China Shop, is my Chinese name. But, and I'm an active member in the High community, which to me means a lot. As I'm sure everybody here knows, but if you don't, the High Center was the vision, and still is the vision, of the person we're here remembering tonight, of blessed memory, the late Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz, also known as Schwartzie. So just so you're clear, I'm not your typical High guy. I didn't know Shlomo very well. I met him very late in his life, after his car accident while he was very ill. And I did get to spend some time with him, but I have nothing but love and respect for him. He developed relationships with people that I care about and I love today. And I'm meeting people that know him. I said, hey, I'm speaking at this thing for this guy. And the guy was like, oh, it's this rabbi. He ran this big community. It was, don't pay for, oh, it was Schwartzie. That's who it was. My wife, Yana Jakobsfeld, is here with me tonight. She met Schwartzie and his family 20 years ago plus. She cherishes that relationship and holds dear all of the memories. We, my wife and I, had the blessing of being Schwartzie's last wedding. Wow. And we also, have the we're the first recipients of the Schwartzie Award, called Yittel by Yittel. As you can see, I didn't start off as from. Kind of came into this thing a little marked up. You do see me today as an observant man. I have a beard, I wear tzitzit, I have a kosher home, though I credit that to my wife. I'm the guy that puts the milk spoon in the meat sink. I'm the guy that pours the OUD cashew milk into the meat pans. The best part of that is she's laughing already. It's not funny. So there was one time I was pouring chicken broth into a meat bowl. I made sure of it this time. And my wife walks in, and she's like, oh my gosh, is that a dairy bowl? I literally started to cry. I have not perfected the kosher thing. The reason I haven't taken over the world is because I'm really busy trying to not unkosher my kitchen. I started to cry. My wife and my mother-in-law, who I cherish very much, her mother, were drinking a wonderful bottle of Chardonnay or Sauvignon Blanc, this really, really good stuff I bought for them. So they were really feeling really good, and they were laughing at me, and I was just sitting sulking in the corner. And they laughed themselves into a stupor. I also know where all the dish mikvahs are in the Tarzana Reseda area. I actually frequent them. See, she knows. If you want to know what a dish mikvah is, come talk to me afterward. I'll explain it to you the best I can as a Baal Teshuva. I still don't really get it, but I wash my dishes at Nera Temple about once every 2 months. During the High Center High Holidays, which are not pay to pray, they have a card. It's got the 10 things that Schwartzie wanted us all to do. He wanted us to light Shabbos candles. He wanted men to wear tefillin after their 13th birthday. Hang a mezuzah in your house and on your house in the right spots. Torah study, tzedakah, keeping kosher, love your fellow Jew, Jewish education, family purity. I took on all of these responsibilities and all the other mitzvot. The first step to doing that was getting honest with myself. A rabbi told me I wasn't Jewish. That because my maternal grandmother had a conversion, and I didn't have all the paperwork, and we didn't know exactly what the circumstances were, he told me I wasn't Jewish. Now, this made me angry. This made me so angry that I started an Orthodox conversion. And I'm still not sure I taught that guy a lesson. I had not always been Jewish. I've always been Jewish. I was raised Jewish. I'm Jewish. This is just what I am. But in my house, Judaism wasn't... We stayed home from school for Rosh Hashanah, but we went to the movies. That's what my grandpa took us to do. It wasn't that observancy was frowned upon. It just wasn't there. I was also really confused. I kept hearing we're God's chosen people. Chosen for what? What I've learned is that it's not really chosen, it's responsibility. And I've been given this responsibility to carry the spark of Hashem into the world. And I finally believe for the first time at 52 years old that I'm discovering what that spark is. Mostly for myself, but how to carry it to others. My mother, God rest her soul, had 3 children by the time she was 20 years old. She was not married. I never met my biological father. He would eventually die of a self-inflicted gunshot wound in the 1990s, decades after I told he was dead. My mother married a Filipino man when I was 3 years old. I thought, until I was 10, that I was Filipino. It's funny, but it's really not. And I'll tell you why. At 10 years old, kids would walk up to me and say, "You're not Filipino." Now, I was a bully in school. I was a big kid, very strong for my age, very overly muscular and very handsome. The school brought my mom and dad in and sat down in the principal's office and said, "You have to tell them." And I said, "Tell me what?" They looked at the, "Don't you tell them anything." So they took me home and they told me that this was not my father. I was devastated. I was 10 years old. I was almost as tall as my father. And it's true. He was 5'5". He says he was 5'6". No, absolutely not. 5'5" all day long. This man that gave me his name, Marcelino, it's Filipino, and my 2 sisters, took his own life when I was 17 years old. The same way that my biological father did. I grew up in a house with my grandmother and grandfather. We all lived in this big house in Gardena. I don't know if you know where Gardena, if you play cards, you know where Gardena is? We'll end it there. By the time that he passed, my grandmother had passed, my father had just passed, and my grandmother had passed. My grandmother, father, and grandfather had passed. Death was not unknown to me, and it was not unexpected. As a child, we were very secular, as I said. We stayed home from school. I started bar mitzvah classes at about 10, 11 years old. I went for a couple of years to Sunday school, to Tuesday night Hebrew school. At 12 years old, I was caught smoking pot in the back of the shul and kissing on the Hebrew teacher's daughter at the bat mitzvah. I was asked to never return to that shul again. And if you believe this or not, it was the only shul in Gardena. And for the next 17 years, I did not enter a shul.
Oh my God.
The pot smoking led to harder addictive drugs. I became a full-blown addict after my father's death. My mother did the same. She eventually wound up in a wheelchair. She broke her back in a bar, going over a bar stool, and she passed away in that wheelchair years ago. And I wound up a needle user. I wound up homeless. I wound up pushing carts and collecting cans and scrap metal and robbing businesses and jumping over fences and stealing the old jet skis because I could carry them. And when I was no longer able to carry them, I was done. I was arrested dozens of times. I got pulled over by a policeman 2 years ago. He's like, have you ever been arrested? I'm like, yeah, about 100 times. And he's like, he said he was arrested 100 times. He goes, what for? I said, possession, conspiracy to manufacture methamphetamine, petty theft, vagrancy, all that stuff. My first overdose of methamphetamine caused me to have a seizure in an abandoned garage in Gardena. The guys there dragged me outside as I was seizing up because they didn't want to be accused of my death because I was going to die. There's no way. I made a mistake. I can't tell you how long I was out in the backyard, eventually crawled back into that garage and sat there for days, didn't eat, couldn't get up, and I still didn't stop using for 2 more years. In 1999, I went to Beit Teshuvah. If anybody here knows, Beit Teshuvah, it's an amazing program. It's an amazing place. There's a 2-hour story about how I got there. It was amazing, but really quickly, I was dressed in my mom's clothes, purple sweats, because that's all I had. No ID, nothing else. I was at the Claire Detox in Santa Monica. This beautiful, beautiful girl walks in with a Magen David. So I, walk up to her, hey, how you doing? I'm Jewish too. Looking at me, nice sweats. She told Beit Teshuvah I was there. They came and got me. Wow. And then when I started screwing up there, I'm like, you guys came and got me. I didn't ask to be here. But it's an amazing program. Today, I am 12 days away from 10 consecutive years of being drug-free. What I learned from Rabbi Mark Borovitz at Beit Teshuvah has never, ever left me. Every Jew has a place in this world. It was my job to discover what that was. It's a hell of a job. I had a couple short relapses. I got 22 years off of alcohol. I was out for 6 weeks after my divorce. And then I relapsed a couple of times for different reasons, but I'm coming up like I said. I continued after leaving Beit Teshuvah to different synagogues, looking for the connection to God. I went to 12-step meetings several times a week, looking for the same thing. I knew there was a power greater than myself and other than myself. And I knew that I had to connect to that power to realize who I'm supposed to be. I just had no idea how to do it. And I knew my whole life that that was important. I'll be honest, I haven't escaped my past without damage to my soul and my body. I carry a lot of baggage and a lot of trauma into my present today. I struggle with life skills that I was never taught or I ignored. I have this constant question of why. Why would God do this? Why would God do that? Why did he let this happen? Why did that get destroyed? Why didn't that not get destroyed? It grinded me for years. At about 30 years old, I looked back at my life and I could not reconcile this. I was angry and I was hurt. I took an inventory of my past. I listed all my resentments, and it was a long list. All of my fears, and that was a lot longer than I thought it would be. And all of my relationships, good and bad. I wrote out what bothered me and why. I was then told to list my part in the resentments. That's a task. Why I was afraid. Not what I was afraid of, but why. And how come that relationship failed and what was my part in it. I need to add that I didn't do this alone. Opening these wounds alone is not recommended. I had a man show me how to do it because somebody had showed him. After we were done, we saw patterns of behaviors and beliefs, how I blamed others. I owned responsibilities that weren't mine. I was able to see at times I truly was a victim. And then I got to see how I used that victim to hurt you and me. Well, it wasn't okay. If you would like to know more, or if you have somebody that's struggling with addiction or alcoholism, please approach me after. I'm still active in the recovery community. As I said, I attended 12-step meetings for 7.5 years. I assisted other men with recovery. I had owned a men's sober living. I had managed men's sober living, and I'm still involved in a medical detox. I was very active. My wife has been my most compassionate teacher. this is where the printer got everything out. Okay, here we go. During this time, I was involved in a custody battle. I have 3 daughters, but 2 minors. One daughter is here tonight. She's going to be 17 years old soon. This custody case pushed us all to the edge. Financially, emotionally, spiritually. We, my children and I, were spent. I had lost all my parental rights. I had to visit my daughters with and at a court monitoring center. There were several years where I was unable to see one daughter while I was trying to stop the other one from falling apart myself. 6 years ago, for the 3rd time, this case was moved to a new court and a new judge. He said, "Sir, I'm reading a very disturbing file." These are his words. "I don't know you. I don't know what is true and what is not. We are going to start from zero." He told me that he was going to remove all my visitation again. That I was going to have to go through another court-appointed monitor for visiting. He said that if I was patient, if I would let him do his job, I may be surprised. I started to cry. I said, "I just started to reconnect with my kids. You can't do this to me again." He said, "Be patient." At the end, after 3.5 years, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and a lot of patience and faith, I was awarded sole custody of both of those kids, physical and legal. I'll be honest, we're still picking up the pieces, and we're still putting our life back together. The toll it took was complete. There wasn't anything that it did not remove from us. I had scorched the earth and everything on it. Looking back today, I can't tell you I would do it again. I don't know what I would do, but I wouldn't put those kids through it. My wife tells me I don't know how to lose. It's a blessing and a curse. I truly believe God has given me the skills I needed to survive. I survived my childhood. I survived my addiction. I've lost so many friends. In the last 6 months, I had a friend die in a jail cell and another one get beat to death. Both still actively drinking and using. The party ended for them a long time ago. They just never left. I ignored those skills when they were presented to me by caring people. And there were a lot of people that cared for me. I now wanted to live a calm and life of love. To be a father of compassion and empathy, but I don't know how to do that. After the case was over, I lost that spiritual connection at my 12-step program. I no longer could find what I once had. I was adrift. I'll be honest, for a man like me, being adrift is dangerous for you too. I am not a kind man. I'm not a good person when I am out drinking and using. I'll be honest. I had a lot of amends to do, and I do those amends to this day. 6 months after my wife and I were married, while we were finding our way with this new blended family, I decided to start wearing a kippah. And then I started wearing tzitzit. My wife and I sought counsel with Mendel and with Esther. I was a mess. Was not connected to the 12-step process any longer. I was calling him more and more, asking him more and more questions, and asking for help. Now I want to tell you my experience about meeting Mendel. I met him during the preparation for our wedding. As we all know, Schwartzie was sick, and Mendel took on the burden of counseling us and doing everything. I can't speak for him, but it was love at first sight. There was something in the matter-of-fact demeanor and calmness that I found so authentic. I needed what he had. I needed what you had. I needed to heal my soul. When I started this process, I was not sure. I consider Mendel my rabbi, my teacher, and my friend. He has taken this legacy his father started and has continued to shepherd this community. I went to Mendel and told him that I wanted to do an Orthodox conversion after that rabbi hurt my feelings, and I'm pretty sensitive. Mendel did what any good Orthodox rabbi would do when somebody says, I want to do a conversion. He absolutely try to talk me out of it. He's like, listen, you have no idea what this is about. You don't understand. No more cheeseburgers, no more shrimp, no more scallops. I'm like, no more scallops? No more scallops. I'd say about a month, he couldn't dissuade me. I'm like, I'm doing this thing. That rabbi just pissed me off, told me I wasn't a Jew. I'll choke that guy. That's pretty much what I said. He's like, I know that guy. He's not a bad guy. He said, he shouldn't have said that to me. He's a good guy. Just calm down. Kind of walking around in circles. I don't even know where that guy lives, but I'm going to find out. We went through the process. I'm a little nervous. I got a little emotional right now. My wife and I went to the Beit Din, and they told her she had to go through the process with me. It's Jana Jakobsfeld. I mean, why does she got to go to my conversion process? And I'm a Jew. What do I got to go through this thing for? But she agreed. She would support me on my path. It was hard on us at first. Having 4 teenage daughters who were as interested in becoming observant as I am in listening to their music. I don't like that music. I can't do it. It was a challenge. Still at times, my wife continues and has to balance our family's needs. I cannot do what she does, and I don't claim to. I have a different skill set. 10 months, we attended classes. We transformed our home. We changed everything. One Friday night, I drove to Olivia's, had dinner, drove home, and I haven't drove again on Shabbos. Not once. Mendel, myself, my wife, our maid, spent 4 hours koshering our kitchen. Should have seen us. Do we have to get rid of this one plate? Yes, you have to get rid of that plate. We really like this plate. It was funny. I met with him after Shabbos would end, and I would fly over to his house, jump right on my Harley or in my car, and I'd go straight to his house, and I would vent and fetch and complain. My wife hurt my feelings. She doesn't understand how sensitive I am. And then she would come with me, and in front of me, she would say the same thing about me. It was very difficult for me because I struggled. Mendel, you've been there with me the entire way. On the day that I went to the Beit Din to be quizzed and enter the mikveh, Mendel was there. When I was called to the Torah in Israel, I was there. We were there with the Schwartz family. Mendel and Esther allowed my wife and I to participate in their son's bar mitzvah so I could celebrate my own. Wow. We visited the tomb of Schwartzie together, our families. Seeing you all here tonight, we know that this High Center is in good hands. And that we owe that to you and to who and what Schwartzie still is to all of us and how he prepared you. It's amazing. Before I finish, I want to point out, as you've heard me say a couple times tonight, I can't be who I am right here, right now without my wife. How she leads our family. I believe she learned from several good role models. Her mother, who I love very much, and Olivia Schwartz. Truly, the best teachers one could have. You are also a huge role model in our lives. Esther, you mean so much to us. Watching you raise your children, and being allowed to spend time. I had Ari before he went into the Army. He came and stayed at our home and worked with me for 6 weeks. And one funny story about that is funny. Yeah? So he's like, I'm going to work, I'm leaving your house, mom and dad, you know, I'm on my own. I'm 17, to be in the Army soon, it's all good. He calls me, what time will we start tomorrow? I said, I'll be at your house at 5 o'clock in the morning. He's like, in the morning? Absolutely. So I show up, of course he fell back to sleep. He comes out with his bag, and he's kind of like, dun, 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 gets in the car. We're going. He's like, where are we going? I said, we're going back to the valley. He's like, okay. So about 2/3 of the way there, he's like, what are we doing in the valley? I said, we're going to Minion. He's like, to Minion? What are we going to Minion for? I go, because we're Jewish. And it's a responsibility to make sure that when other people need 10 people there, that we're 2 of them. And when we need a minion, that they're there for us, even if they don't want to be there at 5:45 in the morning. I got a lot of love for your children. I do. We all know what Olivia did for her family also. She did the same for her husband, as my wife has done for me. And she does it for thousands of high-center people. It's amazing to me how far-reaching the Schwartz family has reached. It's done. The High Center would not be what it is today without Olivia Schwartz, any more than it would be today without Schwartzie. Yeah. Still. My wife said I could speak for both of us, so I will say that our family, it's my turn to speak for all of us. When I say thank you, Mendel, Esther, and I know Olivia's not here, the guidance that you have given my wife, to myself, to our family, you all have been so important on my journey to becoming Baal Teshuvah and fully Shomer Shabbos. And I want to say thank you and thank you.